Hi everyone, my name is Courtney, and in this presentation I will be talking about employment law and employment contracts. Before jumping straight into employment contracts, it is important to establish what employment law is. Employment law is the area of practice that establishes the rights, obligations, and responsibilities within a workplace relationship. Employment law covers topics such as wages, workplace safety, discrimination, sexual harassment, wrongful termination, etc. It is important to note that in some cases, an employee has to have worked at a company a set number of days before being protected by certain employment laws. Okay, so what is an employment contract? An employment contract is an agreement that is formed between two parties, the employer and the employee, that establishes or renews the terms of the employment relationship. Most often it is a written contract, however, it can also be verbal or implied. Think about the paperwork you receive and sign when you are being hired at a new job. That employment contract usually explains to you, the employee, what you should expect from your new position, your official job title, the salary information, benefits provided to you, the duration of your employment and/or your work schedule, and what duties and responsibilities you will be expected to perform, among other things. Now we will look at some of the different types of employment contracts. We are all probably familiar with full-time and part-time contracts. Full-time contracts are offered to employees who will be working a full week, typically around 35 hours or more, whereas part-time contracts are offered to employees who will be working a reduced number of hours, or less than 35 hours per week. Part-time employees usually do not receive insurance or PTO benefits, which are mostly reserved for full-time employees. Zero-hour contracts are offered to employees who will be essentially on call. They only work when work is available, so their schedule can be irregular, which is why our guard on the right is an insecurity guard. His work schedule is not as secure, consistent, or reliable as others. Casual contracts are used to hire temporary or seasonal employees. Casual contracts are very flexible, and in many cases, companies are not required to offer temporary or seasonal employees a minimum number of shifts or hours. A freelance contract is used when an employee is hired to do a specific project. If a company hires someone to create a logo for their business, they would likely be hired as a freelance employee. Freelance contracts outline the project details, salary and payment terms, and the limitations on the hours expected will be defined. Freelance employees are self-employed, so a company's PTO or insurance benefits typically are not extended to freelancers. Lastly, an at-will contract is a type of employment agreement that outlines all of the information that a normal employment contract would, but at-will contracts do not specify the duration of the employment, and it usually leaves out guaranteed rights. Because of this, at-will agreements allow employees and employers to terminate the agreement at any time and without reason. This is the type of contract that we will be focusing on for the duration of this presentation. The document I will be presenting is an employment agreement for an individual who will be agreeing to an at-will employment at Costco for a membership assistant position. As stated previously, at-will employment means there is not a specified end date to the employment agreement. Either party can typically end the agreement without notice unless otherwise stated. This is compared to a fixed-term employment, which means there is a specific end date to the agreement and the employment. Here we have an employment agreement between Jane Doe and Costco. As stated in the employment section, Jane will be employed as a membership assistant on a full-time basis. Her day-to-day responsibilities are clearly listed. She will be processing Costco member signups and renewals, instructing members about the various membership programs, assisting members regarding the availability of specific items, and she will be issuing replacement and temporary cards. She is also expected to provide a high level of member and customer service. Jane is expected to start working on November 1st, 2021 on an at-will basis, and she has a probation period of 30 days starting on her first day of work. In this portion of the employment contract, Jane's compensation, work hours, and benefits are explained. Her base salary is $17.85 per hour, and she will receive payment each Friday. Since Jane is a full-time employee working 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, she will be receiving PTO or paid time off as required by the state and local terms. In the final portion of the employment agreement, more information is explained so both parties are clear on the agreement. The final page of the document explains notices will be sent by hand or mail to the address listed. And since this is an at-will agreement, it is stated that a waiver by either party shall not constitute a breach of violation. The severability disclaimer states that if any part of the employment agreement is invalid or illegal, none of the provisions will be affected and will remain valid, legal, and enforceable. Once Jane Doe and the employer signs this document, the offer is accepted and Jane Doe is hired by Costco for the membership assistant position. With that, I will leave you with this meme of the Joker. Thank you so much for watching my presentation on employment law and employment contracts.